That was the week of Kalyn Ponga. Kicked off, of course, on the Mowers Club.
Yeah.
Incidentally. There was a statement he released via the Knights. The NRL the Sydney Morning Herald report the NRL is exploring the possibility of banning Ponga from Kangaroo squads next year. Former Australian captain Bob McCarthy said he should never be considered for Australia again. Where do you stand on it, Scope?
Look, I'm in the camp of you play for whoever you want to play for, and I think there are a number of factors that have attributed to this. I think so. If you go back to last year's decision and his decision to pull out of playing for Queensland, due to the head knock history that he'd had, I think a lot of people, for the most part, applauded him for that, and therefore, I think if the problem with what's happened this time is you're listening to all these players that have represented the jersey. Corey Parker sounded like was one of them at the end. Cameron Smith was talking it on here on SEN. And because I think the embarrassment of riches that Australia have at the position, I think he was a bit naive to think that it probably was going to blow up to what it has become. I think that is mainly that is probably a part of the problem as well. I fully understand and support any player that gets to the back end of a grueling season, which they've just been through, and if you've got any sort of injury history, he's got his own head knock history, which he sought going overseas. He went to Canada, or was it America or Canada? He definitely went to North America to go get advice to figure out how he can solve the issues that he was having there for, it felt like 12 months. So if you've got a player, for the reasons that he's saying is he wants to prioritise the club that pay him his salary every month, every week, every month, every day, and he wants to win a competition, man, look, we've got to find a way as a game, like we put so much effort into Origin, and it's, for a lot of people, it's called the pinnacle.
Yep.
In what game, AFL Rugby Union, do we have 3 levels of competition that you could argue get progressively harder and more physical as we go on? Like you start a domestic competition in the NRL, which is really tough. 27 rounds, you play 25 with 2 buys. And then if you're Penrith Panthers, you play 4 extra games every year for the last 5 years. So they've got to deal with that. This is not just Kalyn. This is... that's not a case for Kalyn, but that is what the Penrith players have been.
Are you preempting maybe more people will pull out of this end of year series?
This is where I think it's going.
Okay.
And this is what I think people are worried about within the game who want to grow the international game. So then you have an origin period, and through the middle part of the season that is super taxing on the players, both physically and mentally. I've seen players, I've had teammates that have played origin and then trained with them the following week, and they're just not there. And that's only a small sample size. That's not everyone. I'm just saying I've played with a few players that have been like that. And then at the end of the year, you want to line them up against a team like New Zealand with some players for New Zealand are probably in the best position out of everyone because with regards to the Pacific Championship, because all of their players don't play Origin. The Tongan, Samoan, Fijian, Cook Island, they're all minnow countries, all considered not Tier 1 countries. So they are able to play Origin and go through that series, and the physical demands of what that does to their bodies, and then therefore the back end of the season, you've only got to look at the way that Penrith limped into the final series to see what those effects have on the game. So I believe that it is obviously, Mel obviously had Kalyn as a part of his plans, maybe not to be the starting fullback, but if something was to go wrong, a backup plan. But I get the feeling that people within the game, at the highest order, and even Mel think this could be a trend if we don't figure out what we're doing with the international game and how we work it in with a really competitive Origin series that all the other codes would love to have, and a really extremely taxing NRL season as well.
So today here on SEN, Mal Meninga had this to say on the throwdown with Jimmy Smith about how he found out Kalyn wasn't available.
Just through the press release, unfortunately, So, that's the first I think anyone knew about it, to be honest with
Yeah.
you. And I'm assuming include the Newcastle club as well. So I think this is done independently. So that's my read on it all. I have spoken to Kalyn in confidence, so that conversation will stay private, and it's just unfortunate that I think, the thing that comes out of this for me is about the process of, Kalyn obviously and his advisors understanding, the protocols around making himself unavailable for whatever reason, and then obviously the process around how that gets released into the public domain as well. So obviously that has to be cleared up into the future, and to ensure that we don't have this sort of mess going on in the public eye at the moment.
So part of the reason players say they don't want to play for Australia is because there's this rule now that was brought in the bargaining agreement from RLPA that you have to have 8 weeks off at the end of a season, right, after your last game. So I think this series will go till mid-November-ish, about 10th-ish of November.
Yep.
So if they then have 8 weeks off, they don't return to pre-season until February, which is a fair way behind the rest of their
or at least
teammates.
halfway through.
Late
at least
Jan.
halfway through Jan. Yeah, so they might miss the first week. But here's what's happened, and I brought this up today with Mace. Stephen Crichton, he was allocated that time because he played for Samoa in the Pacific Championship last year. But he was going to a new club, similar situation. Like he knew he was going to be a really important part of what this Bulldogs team was going to be this year. So he went to Army camp a week before Christmas.
Yeah.
He chose to.
Mm.
And that's what players will do because they are paid by the clubs. And he felt like Cameron Ciraldo didn't ask him to come to attend it. But during that period, that's when Cameron Ciraldo decided that he was going to be the captain for the Bulldogs, and he showed the leadership qualities. And that's what these players... That's what a lot of these players do. So a lot of these players don't have the extended break that you'd expect, and it's even harder for some of the top tier players. And when you look at, if you're looking at it from purely, Kalyn's perspective as well, with regards to wanting to win a competition at Newcastle, they've missed the jump in the last 2 years and come home really strong.
Yeah, they have.
And as we know, and this year again echoes that, is that you've got to be in the top 4 to win the competition.
Mm-hmm.
You need an opportunity to win that first week of finals and have a week. Otherwise, you look at the underdogs for this week's games. They are the 2 teams that had to play 3 games and therefore miss out on the rest that Penrith and Melbourne have been able to get. And if you miss the jump through, whether it be preparation, whether it be combination and reps with your spine, that really needs to be worked on at Newcastle. I fully understand Kalyn's decision. I think he was a little bit maybe naive to think that it was probably going to blow up in the manner of which it does. It has, but I also think it's a larger issue. And I think people within the NRL and Mel are a little bit worried about what the trickle-down effect will be like for some other players who are 50-50.
So this saga has a latest development. This afternoon, according to Michael Carianis and Brent Reid of the Daily Telegraph, the NRL have given the Knights and Kalyn Ponga a deadline over the Kangaroos representative snub. It's understood the NRL have written to the Knights outlining the club and Ponga's requirements for players to make themselves available for the Kangaroos. The NRL have set a 4 p.m. deadline on the Knights and Ponga to change their stance.
See this? I don't know how you do this now.
They're not going to change their stance.
Well,
why would he?
What position does that put him in now? That's a really tough position to put him in now. He might not have been aware what the rules were. Like I said, the reason I think this could lead to more as well is because now it's almost like, when you have a sickie, right? You go, you got a doctor that you might trust. You go down, go to the local doctor. I've got a bit of a cough, doc. Give me a medical certificate. That's what players are going to do because there are players. That little bit of audio that we heard from Cam Munster, that doesn't sound super convincing that he wants to be a part of it. That was and that's pure. I only heard that one little bit of media, and I've got no chat from him at all. But I was listening to that going, there could be more players. There could be more players that are in Kalyn's situation, or a part of what they're trying to do now is make an example of Kalyn, and then therefore we don't see that from players, which would put the players in a really tough position.
All right, well, you better keep listening to today's show because there'll be developments on this. As I said, 4 p.m. deadline for the Knights and Ponga. Save 50% on Bodie's protein water with 100% WPI exclusively at Chemist Warehouse.